What do you remember about making the Daleks? Because I think when you made it, Doctor Who hadn't even started on TV yet.
Christmas time,
yes.
Coming up to Christmas, and it was a kids programme, no big deal, but I didn't know anybody on it, and I was very happy to do the work. I previously, I think the year before, worked for Verity Lambert, who was the producer, and I just got booked for this job, but of course I didn't realise at the time, until we were all there, that we were blondes. My character, I played a Thal, I was a goodie, living on Scarab, I think my planet was called. And that was it, and I remember when we broke for Christmas, Verity gave a little Christmas party for the cast, and I was trying to find something kind of robot-y to sort of give her as a Christmas present, and there wasn't anything. Can you imagine? None of this kind of thing. So, happily, the series took off, and I think I did another series, and that was it.
Yes.
And here we are.
Yes.
100 years later, some of us are still alive.
And all three of you worked with different incarnations or different actors playing the Doctor. William Hartnell mixed reports about him, and we've had lots of people who worked with Bill Hartnell at the conventions over the years. Very contrasting views of him. What was your take on Hartnell?
I think with Bill, what you saw was what you got.
Yeah.
He was, in a way, he was in character. Who knows? But that actually was his character. A bit of a grumpy sod. But I remember corpsing. It's the only time during the series that I did. I had to wear this funny little headdress with 3 spikes on it.
Yes.
And on action, I was Mrs. Thal, and I had a cooking pot. And on action, I was doing my turning the whatever we were cooking, and I put my head up to give a line to Bill, and my headdress got caught in the back of one of the extras' knickers. So I'm kind of like that, thinking, oh my God, they're going to go again, and I laughed. He was livid, because you didn't do that in those days, you just carried on. But it was a bit of a rocky start. It was fine, it was all right.
Yeah. And you filmed it pretty well as though you were doing a live performance.
Completely. That was the only time that we did a retake, when I laughed.
So you caused the retake in the Daleks.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first. That's marvellous.
When Blu-rays come out, DVDs, videotapes, figures, or any of that stuff, in your contract that you originally signed, do you get a percentage when you show them on TV or anything like that?
You get about, if you're lucky, about tuppence halfpenny, and every now and again I'll get a repeat check because it's been shown around. But it doesn't. I don't know how they work that one out, or how one can check how many people have watched it in Australia, or America, or Timbuktu. Every now and again I will get a little check for a tenner.
Can you live off Blu-ray fees?
Well, in the good old days, we did get royalties. Now you don't. You get what's called a buyout for everything. So you don't even get that.
Really?
Yes, you get
Was there anyone left having work getting repeats?
I did get repeats. I think it was up until about probably 2000. All the BBC programmes. So I earned a lot more money in fees from things like the children's presenting I did, because when I went into Doctor Who, I was on what they call a special high, because I hadn't worked for the BBC before.
Okay.
But remember that you got increments, depending on how much you've done.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
And then I remember taking home in my sort of pay pack, as it were, after paying my national insurance, tax and agents' fees. Yeah. It was actually less than I was earning touring around the country in the back of a van doing children's theatre.
Okay.
So it was never going to make me much money from the episode fees. But then obviously all the stuff afterwards. We don't get a cut of any of the merchandise. I remember getting a cheque from Papua New Guinea. I think I kept it somewhere because it was it was for sales to Papua New Guinea, and it arrived through the door, and I opened it, and there was a cheque for 6p.
Less than a stamp.
Exactly.
I've had a few of it.
Was that for Doctor Who?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. I didn't know Doctor Who was shown in Papua New Guinea.
Well, it's quite fun to think that it was or is shown in Papua New Guinea, isn't it?
I didn't know that either.
Saw the Daleks in the very early days, probably when they weren't quite so famous. What was your impression when you first saw them, and did you think they would catch on?
Ginny, you were the first group of people who were, first cast group who ever worked with
because
Daleks.
in rehearsal, the Daleks they were just walking around and sliding around on orange boxes. It was Peter Hawkins who was the voice. I think there were two of them.
Did you have Peter in the studio with you?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were sort of shuffling around, and we sort of pretended it was a thing. And then it wasn't until we were actually at the technical run that the thing actually appeared.
Yeah.
And it was sort of, it's extraordinary. And of course, we had to pretend to be terrified and all the rest of it.
And
Yeah.
you
But this was right at the very beginning.
Yeah.
We literally introduced the Daleks, and
That's
you know, we were all supposedly terrified.
Yeah.
And there they are today.
Yeah, and still doing.
And still
I mean,
doing.
I suppose the question would be if I'd said to you in 63 and 64,
no.
do you know these monsters are still going to be around in 60 years?
Yes, no way.
No way. You wouldn't
No
have
way.
thought people
And
studying
especially
what was bad.
in my day, they were kind of quite tinny.
Yeah.
You know, the sets were very small, and I remember, you know, if you leant like that, the flat would disappear, and you'd say, oh God, I've just moved a thing, and somebody would be standing behind it, holding it up.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, that's how it was in those days.
Well, it was Daleks Invasion Earth, 2150 AD, which was really quite amazing and very sort of exciting and huge. So the whole idea with the spacecraft and everything, it was really new thing and really quite exciting. And Bernie Cribbins and Peter Cushing were wonderful to work with. I had a really great time, and we had to jump out of the spacecraft and land on the ground, and that was pretty scary.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to act too much because it was quite frightening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Peter Cushing was very cool and marvellously masterful about the
Yes.
whole thing. He was a great actor.
Yeah.
Very great. And I enjoyed it very much. I felt very honoured to be in that movie because it was so special and so different and new.
Sophie, you did your own stunts, didn't you? Did you
Yes.
ever have a double?
I had a double twice, and the second time I saw her, she said, "Will you stop doing your own stunts because you're putting me out of work?" Yeah. The first one was for Remembrance of the Daleks, funny enough, where I beat up the Dalek with a baseball bat, and then I jump out of a window. And because I'd never done a stunt before, they decided to get a stunt person to do the jumping through the window. I really wanted to do it myself, but you had to jump with enough force to go through this sugar glass. But the corridor out the other side of the window was quite far down, and although they had crash mats, they didn't want to risk me actually hurting myself. So I did everything. I did all the jumping on the desks and the whacking the Dalek, obviously, and the sliding on the floor and the jumping up on the desks. So that was the first one. And then the other time they got Tracy in was to do the, there's a POV shot from the top of the church tower in the Curse of Fenric of when I climbed down the rope ladder, the steel ladder rather. And at first she was going to do the whole lot, but actually they said, "Oh, Sophie, could you just do the first bit?" So I went sort of halfway down with no harness or anything like that from this church tower. And then I got to the bottom, they said, "Could you just climb halfway up and do the climb down?" So by the time I'd done that, there wasn't that much for Tracy to do, but she did have, before the days of GoPros, she had a camera strapped to a hard hat, and she did do a couple of takes of going down the ladder, and you'll see in the actual edit, you can see Ace's POV looking around the churchyard, and you see the haemovores Yeah.
I see.
But
Okay.
I did all the others, which was, looking back
Right.
now,
And you're
it's
still
crazy.
here.
And I'm
Well
still
done.
here, yeah. I think it's because I was so cheap. It was cheaper than a stunt person.
Did you enjoy working the Dalek?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Although, when it actually came to doing that stunt, we'd rehearsed it in the rehearsal rooms, and our lovely stunt coordinator, Tip, had taken me through it, and we'd put out some furniture to replicate what was going to be the lab in the school. But when it came to it, my metal baseball bat hitting the metal eyepiece of the Dalek was kind of, it sort of, that was, but I did enjoy it, but I was under a lot of pressure because there was only one take that we could do. And then I sort of laid into this Dalek, there's an outtake of it somewhere, and then somebody shouts, "Stop, stop, stop." And they say, "We haven't got the stunt Dalek top on," or something. You're hitting the wrong Dalek. And I say like, well, nobody told me, because, nobody had said anything, so how was I to know? But anyway, it was good fun. And then after we'd done the stunt, and I'd whacked the Dalek, and I'd done the jumping on the desk and everything, the stunt coordinator came up to me and he said, "Now just sit there, because what you've done, your adrenaline it's the equivalent of being in a car crash. So you need to kind of calm down and breathe. I'll go and get you a cup of tea." So they went off, everybody went for tea, and then in the silence, as I was breathing, I could hear this little, I thought, what's that? And I was looking around everywhere, I was going, and the little voice went, and it was the poor man inside the Dalek, and everybody had gone off and left him inside the Dalek.
Who created Davros?
Who created Davros? That's a good question. Mr. and Mrs. Davros, I don't know.
I was just interested to know, how did the production process compare between The Power of the Doctor and your original series with Sylvester?
It was funny because I thought it would be all, like amazing tech and stuff. So I came back and did an episode more recently. And actually I was really surprised at how similar it was. The feeling of it was exactly the same. Jodie was just like Sylvester. She knew everybody's names. She made everybody laugh. She was just so generous and lovely to work with. And I thought, that there was a bit where Janet Fielding, Tegan, and I run in, and she puts her bag down on a table, and then it's meant to fall off the table, and a little model of the Cyberman comes out like that. And I thought, they'll have this amazing way of getting the bag. So she puts her bag down on the table, and then I'm very pleased to tell you that the way they got the bag to fall off the table and the Cyberman to fall out was a man lying under the table with a long stick. And then there was another bit where the doors are meant to shut, they go like that between Ace and Tegan. And I, go, "Tegan!" And I thought, and the director said, "Well, we will do that in post, but we do need to have something to go." So again, good old standby, man with a bit of cardboard. He just when the cue comes, he just goes across like that with a bit of cardboard. But of course it's stuck, like it always did, and he had to do it again. So it really was very, very similar.
Yeah.
Reassuringly similar.
Good.